Today, as you know, we are having, in continuation of our series on contemporary issues, we are having a discussion on income inequalities. Though we are titled it in income inequalities, the focus, of course, is on India. Two very good papers published recently in Economic and Political Weekly, and they are here. Both the authors are here with us to discuss their paper. Today's discussion, and I'm so happy, is going to be more academic and rather on a topic which is pretty serious: income inequality. So much needs to be done in this area, and so much, of course, has been already done. Still, there is scope for improvement. Again and again, you would have noticed this issue keeps coming up in our country, in our discussions, policy circles, everywhere as to what is happening to the income inequalities worldwide. So today we are having this talk. To do this discussion today on this important topic, we have three eminent academicians. Professor Kundu is known to everyone in our country, known to all of us. He is currently Senior Fellow at the World Resource Institute and Research and Information System for Developing Countries. We have Professor Bezbaruah, again well known, been on our EGROW seminar series a number of times. He is a professor of economics at Guwahati University and the President, Vice President, and at present, the Vice President of the Indian Econometric Society, and was a member of ICSR New Delhi till January 2023. Our third speaker today is Professor Anupam Tyagi. He is at Bangalore. He is a passionate teacher and a researcher. And with these three, I'm welcome you, and I'm going to hand over the session to Professor Kundu to conduct the proceedings further. We are all looking forward to hearing on this important topic from each one of you because you bring in so much eminence to this discussion. Professor Kundu, please.
Thank you, Dr. Charan Singh, for this opportunity of associating myself with this very important webinar by two eminent scholars whose paper has been recently published in EPW, and I had the opportunity of going through it carefully. I said it's a very important webinar because although we know that EGROW Foundation has concern for the vulnerable, for the poor, for the marginalized sections, and many webinars have been held on inequality deprivation. But most of the discussions have been based on the empirical investigation conducted either on the basis of primary survey, but on the secondary data, population census, national sample survey, PLFS data from NSS, and CMI data sometimes have been used. And it's rather surprising that as far as the inequality, economic inequality is concerned, the income, household level income data has not been used, despite the fact that household level income data has existed with us since 2004-5, from the survey conducted by the University of Maryland and NCAER. And that is something surprised, but whenever somebody asks, inequality in India is analyzed on the basis of consumption expenditure data or asset data from RBI. So I'm really very excited that two papers, both of them use the same data set and has recently figured in the public domain, would be analyzed, and we would get to know the results coming from this and how does it compare with the other data sets. I can see that one of the papers, Professor Bezbaruah papers include, besides the NCAER data, also the National Sample Survey consumption expenditure data. So we would get to know why this data, what could be the problems of using the income data in a comparative macro framework, and what are the interesting insights that we get from this data analysis, which we haven't had so far. I'm really excited to really get the iteration of the results and the methodology in some detail from the scholars. Although both the papers I said use the same data set, there is one significant difference that I observed. While the paper, I don't know about the presentation, the paper by Professor Tyagi brings in some of the theoretical concerns in measurement of poverty, talks about alternate measures of poverty based on welfare functions, and how introduction of different measures change the ranking or it doesn't change the ranking, and what are the relevance of bringing the alternate measures of inequality is something which will be additional dimension. And as far as presentation by Professor Bezbaruah, he is bringing in, besides the interstate inequality, also community-wide. India.
Cannot hear you, Professor Kundu.
Sir, please unmute. You suddenly went mute.
I'm sorry, did I not unmute myself?
Yeah, no, you just last 30 seconds, just last 30 seconds. Otherwise, we were
I'm
very
so sorry.
clearly
It just
listening
got
till
switched off.
you came to mentioning about Professor Bezbaruah.
No, I said that Professor Bezbaruah's work is it has a theoretical dimension. It looks at the alternate measures of inequality, based on the welfare function and what are their implications, and whether the results by alternate measures become very different. We'd certainly like to know about that. And as I was mentioning, that Professor Bezbaruah's paper also provides us some insight into the inequality within the community, social religious community, and what is the trend. Well, when you're talking about the trend, we are restricted to the data set of 11-12 national sample survey and also the NCAER data, but I wouldn't really like to tell anything more about this. Let's hear from the scholars themselves, given the fact that there is a theoretical framework, theoretical questions raised in the paper on measurement of inequality by Professor Anupam Tyagi. May I request him to make his presentation, Professor Tyagi, in about 20 to 25 minutes, if that is all right. Both the speakers get 25 minutes, and then I might raise some issues in the next 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll have open discussion.
Okay, no problem. Let me give it a try.
Tyagi?
Yeah, let me give it a try. Let me share my screen with you.
Okay.
So you can see the presentation. EGROW. 1 second. What's happening here? Can you see my screen?
I thought this is coming from Assam, so not for Bengaluru.
Right. That's exactly right. This is the Microsoft picture of the day or something. Anyway.
And can you raise your volume a bit, if possible?
Can I
This is okay.
Can I quickly get a microphone? Professor Charan Singh told me it may not be needed, but let me get it so I may be more audible. Give me 30 seconds.
20 to 25 minutes, Professor Tyagi.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me get a microphone. I was just using computer microphone. Maybe it's not loud enough.
Okay. So your time doesn't start now. It will start when you get your microphone.
Please give me a minute. I'm untangling my microphone. So. Is it any better?
Yeah, much better.
Much better. Okay, fine. Thank you. All right, let me move this here. And I'll put this in the presentation mode.
Sir, in above display setting, can you select mirror a duplicate slideshow?
Okay. Is that good?
No, sir. Sharing stopped suddenly.
One second. Let me try something. Project. How about now? Share screen. Share. How about
Yes,
this?
yes.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead. Your
Yes.
time starts now, Professor Tyagi.
Fine.
25 minutes, okay?
Yeah. I'll some of the slides I can rush through. That's not a
Go
problem.
ahead, please go ahead.
Okay. So, as an introduction, as Professor Kundu said, research on income inequality in India has research on economic inequality in India has mostly focused on inequality in consumption expenditures, mostly from NSS as and here are some examples from various authors. Even the most comprehensive source of international income equality across countries include Gini coefficient measures of India based on consumption expenditure and not income, both for UNI, wider and world inequality database. So income data has been lacking for India to estimate income inequality measures. This research presents facets of income inequality in India. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on measures because my actual paper is mostly empirical. So, but I'll give you just a little bit of an idea. So there are three types of broad income inequality indices. One is by Atkinson indices, second is by generalized entropy indices, and then there is Gini coefficient, which is well known and mostly used and is quite famous. Generalized entropy, both Atkinson's indices are interesting for interpretation. Generalized entropy indices are interesting for their theoretical properties. They have really good theoretical properties, decomposition properties, etc. Here in the paper, my focus was mostly on Gini, but since I realized Professor Bezbaruah will be presenting also on Gini and states, I have additionally included some comparison columns in an Excel sheet I will show you for states. So let me go ahead. So the data is for household income data is from India Human Development Survey. It was conducted in 4-5 and then in 11-12. 4-5 data was available sometime in 2008, 8-9 and 11-12 data around 2017-18, something like that. IHDS is a complex multi-stage non-random sample survey of over 40,000 households in over 2,000 villages and 1,500 urban blocks across India. This survey is unique in going to great details to compute income of households. Over 50 questions were asked to record components of income in detail. Here data has been converted to per person household income to account for variation in household size, which varies from about 4 persons to 31 persons in 2011-12. So just some idea of what that income inequality looks like. Here are quintile groups. Share of the bottom 20% is only 3%. Share of the next 20% is 7%, then 11, and share of the top 20% income is in 2011-12 is 60%. So income inequality, you can just see from here that there seems to be fairly large income inequality in India, and people at the bottom, in the bottom quintiles are not earning enough incomes. Similarly, these are ratios of 90th percentile to 10th percentile, 90th to 50, 10 to 50, and 75 to 25. So you can, here also you can see 90 to 10 is a huge 11, and more than 11, this is 11, 12, it has increased to even, it has even increased to about 12 ratio of 90th to 10th percentile. Similarly for others. This is again for, this is India data. So the Gini 2004-5 and 11-12 was unchanged, 54. If you look at other measures, so here one of the things to keep in mind is if we, the lower this parameter in the brackets for generalized entropy measures, the higher the weight to the lower part of the distribution. So higher weight to dispersion in the lower part of the distribution. So let's just take G is 0, which kind of gives more weight to somewhat in the middle of the distribution, and not much change, just slight increase in from 2004-5 to 2011-12, just slight increase. Okay. Similarly for G1 also slight increase, and G2 which looks at the upper part of the distribution, there is a slight decrease, which means the upper income have got slightly compressed. The dispersion has reduced in the upper part of the income distribution between 2004-5 and 11-12. Okay, Professor Bezbaruah is going to be presenting some similar stuff, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, maybe not this. He's presenting Gini's. So let me just briefly tell you about this. Okay. So this is population share, income share, and I can't see this. Yeah, okay, now it's better. This is relative mean. Relative mean is the mean in rural Indian incomes as a proportion of overall mean. So rural incomes are about 75% of the overall India mean, and urban incomes are 1.5 times the urban all India mean. Okay, similarly for others. So you can see here metro incomes are higher compared to the average. Average metro incomes are higher compared to the average, and similar trends. Okay, you can look at metro areas. Mumbai are higher than rest of India. Bengaluru are also quite high compared to average incomes. Brahmin incomes are high in terms of communities. Forward caste incomes are high. Expected kind of numbers. And Christian, Sikh, and Jain incomes are almost more than double that of the average incomes. Okay. I wanted to, in this slide, this is again the same similar measures. One second. I wanted to highlight Mumbai. So it's, if you look at Gini in Mumbai, it's 0.31, and if you look at all other Ginis, they are about 0.5 or above. Here are 0.49, which is about 0.5. So Mumbai seems to be very equal. Their Gini is somewhat similar to, Scandinavian countries, developing rich kind of welfare states like Scandinavian countries with very high income tax rates. So Mumbai seems to be an outlier in India in this. And this is from 11-12 data. So I want you to keep that in mind. That is one of the take-home points from here, from this data set, this year. You can see that also in this plot. So these are Gini coefficient on the x-axis, and on the y-axis are the metropolitan area. Mumbai is an outlier here in terms of Gini coefficient of household incomes. Social groups, again, Dalits and Muslims have low inequality compared to the others. Brahmins have the highest. now let's look at per capita consumption expenditure. Again, so per capita consumption expenditure, you can see percentile there. For income, it was about 11 or 12. Here it is 5.5. So per capita consumption expenditure are less unequal compared to income. Similarly, if you look at Gini coefficient, per capita consumption Ginis are much lower. The income Gini is 0.54, per capita Gini is 0.4. So per capita consumption expenditure are much, inequality is much lower than income inequality. So if you are going to use consumption inequality as a proxy for income inequality, it may not be a good idea. Okay, but I'm going to skip this in the salient points. So let's just come to the salient points so I can wind up this part of the discussion. So bottom 10% have less than 0.5% income, top 10% has more than 42% of income. Top 10% has more income, 42, than bottom 80%, 40%. So bottom 80% of Indians have 40% of the income, top 10% have 42% of the income. Top 1% have only slightly less income, 12%, than bottom 50%. So bottom 50% has 14.8% of the income, top 1% have 12.2, only slightly less. Bottom 2% has 18% of the income, bottom 50% has 14.8% of the income. So bottom 50% has less income than top 2%. Mumbai stands out as a low inequality metro. Mumbai inequality as measured by Gini of 0.31 is comparable to rich countries, particularly Central European and Scandinavian countries. There is a 40%. Oh, let's just skip this. Not otherwise we'll get into a different discussion. So now let's look at the state data. What do the states show? One second. So this is relative mean. You can see Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, all the state relative means. These are the state. Delhi has a high relative mean income. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar have low relative means. Okay, and again, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, they have low relative means, and southern states usually have high relative mean compared to average Indian income. Change in relative mean between 2004, 5, 11, 12. It is increased here, it is decreased in Uttar Pradesh where it was already low. It has also decreased in Jharkhand, where it was low. It has decreased in Chhattisgarh where it was low, etc. So you can see that thing. One second. Looking at Gini, Jammu Kashmir 0.48. So these are the states with Gini. I think I have a plot for this, so you should. So these are the states. These are generalized entropy indices. I'll show you a change graph for generalized entropy indices in a few minutes. So let's just wait for that. So here are income inequality measures in Indian state 11, 12. So least is 11, 12 Kerala, then Andhra Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Goa. Maharashtra, Goa are clubbed. And then these states. The high inequality states are Haryana, West Bengal, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh. One second. If you map them here, the dark colors are high Gini, light colors are low Gini, and Northeast and Kashmir are not included. So you can see southern states, Kerala is the lowest, faded color. Chhattisgarh is high, Gujarat is high, Haryana is high, West Bengal is high. Madhya Pradesh somewhere in between, Rajasthan in between, Maharashtra, the Telangana is not included, Andhra Pradesh, I think this is
combined on Andhra and Telangana in those days. The map is more recent, the data is old. So least inequality is in Kerala, and southern states are usually okay. Maybe Karnataka is a little bit high. All right, let me show you some, 1 second. Oh, there is some problem with this. 1 second. Maybe I can just open it up here. Yeah. So I made some of these. Yeah, I made these change. So for various states, can you see anything here at all?
Yeah, there's an Excel sheet
Yeah,
with the states.
yeah. So
What
you can
column do
see.
you want us to see?
So you should. So Gini change is here, and red is decreasing. So here red, if you want low inequality, red is good, blue is bad. Okay, so this is Gini change between 4, 5 and 11, 12 for states. So Jammu Kashmir fall in inequality. Kerala big fall in inequality. If you look at the bottom, Tamil Nadu also fall. All these red ones are falls. Okay, blue ones are increases. Himachal Pradesh there is an increase. Uttarakhand there is an increase. Haryana, Delhi, this 13 is. Chhattisgarh has been, there is an increase. Now I've done the similar things, these spike graphs, formatted graphs for other columns, for G1, G0, G minus 1, 0, 1 and G2. So going from the emphasis on the lowest part of the distribution to the highest part of the distribution. And for the most part, the trends are very similar to Gini. There are some reversals, but for the most part, trends are very similar to Gini. Let's not look at the magnitudes. Magnitudes, there can be some differences, like Northeast, there is a big decline according to G1, which means their income at the bottom part of the distribution, income distribution at the bottom part of the distribution in Northeast actually improved between 4, 5 and 11, 12. Because there is this big decline in G1 minus 1. Okay. Similarly, we can look at this similar spike lines for rural urban also. So this is Gini both for Jammu Kashmir rural, Jammu Kashmir urban. So these are for rural urban. And again, the trends are similar, but you can see this. Let's just go here and see where the big falls and increases are. So big increase in upper part of the distribution, it was in Madhya Pradesh. Here the inequality in the upper part of the distribution according to G2 increased substantially. In terms of falls, Northeast rural saw a substantial decline in GE minus 1 at the lower part of the distribution. Similarly, Kerala, where there was an overall fall, it was driven mostly by rural. You can see rural huge decline in Gini and huge decline in other generalized entropy measures in rural Kerala. Okay. Now let me just go back to that presentation. Yeah, this is a problem. Let me fix this. 1 second. Duplicate slideshow. No. I've used this before, but every time there is something. Okay, fine. This is okay. So I can also show you some Lorentz curves and Gini coefficient for Indian states. So this is green line is the line of perfect equality. So the closer, and this is the actual data. So the closer this is to green line, less inequality. So here 2004, 5 is blue line, 2011, 12 is red line. And let's see, for India, they are the same. Gini was unchanged. Rural India, Gini was slightly higher in the latter period. So you can see that red line is further away from the green line. Blue line is closer, so less inequality. Urban India, also same. Jammu Kashmir, a fall in Gini. So this graph, red line is inside, and you can see that it is inside in the middle of the distribution. So that's where the change took place, most of the changes. Here again, Himachal Pradesh, again, not at the bottom of the distribution, not at the very top, somewhere in the upper middle distribution, this change is taking place, and they have had an increase in inequality. Similarly, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Delhi, the capital, increase in income inequality by a huge margin, mostly in the middle of the distribution. Uttar Pradesh, slight fall in the, again in the middle of the distribution here. Bihar, Jharkhand, you can see the line crossing also. There has been increase in inequality here in the upper part of the distribution, increase in inequality upper part of the distribution, decrease in inequality in the middle part of the distribution, middle lower part of the distribution for Jharkhand. Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, huge increase. Madhya Pradesh, Northeast, West Bengal, again increase in middle upper part of the distribution. Assam, decrease in lower part of the distribution. Orissa, Gujarat, almost unchanged, but very high overall. Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, again, actually you can barely see an increase in inequality lower part of the distribution and decrease in inequality in almost every other part of the distribution. Tamil Nadu, and then I did some plots to see if there is some Kuznets curve. In 4-5, this is how it looks, but 11-12, that effect vanishes. Like per capita income and Gini coefficient I plotted. So not really, there is no evidence that higher per capita income across states means lower Gini coefficient. And Gini and growth of Gini. So where states are coming together, closer together, converging in terms of income inequality. There is some evidence. There is Gini coefficient in 4-5 and growth in Gini coefficient between 4-5 and 11-12. So there is some evidence that they are converging on inequality. Salient points: income inequality in India is high. Mumbai stands out as a less unequal metropolitan area. Income shares are highly concentrated among the high income earning percentiles of population. There is substantial variation in income inequality across states. Gini coefficient for states range from 0.43 in Delhi to 0.59 in Gujarat in 4-5 and 0.45 in Kerala to 0.6 in Chhattisgarh in 11-12. Similarly, G2 measure varies from 0.5 in Delhi to 3.71 in Kerala in 4-5 and 0.55 in Maharashtra to 4.18 in West Bengal in 11-12. Inequality has grown the most in Chhattisgarh, 28%, and fallen the most in Kerala, 20% between 4-5 and 11-12. Southern states of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu have shown a decline in Gini coefficient. Most of the income inequalities contributed by within state income variation and not between states. So if I did some decomposition where it shows most of it is coming from within state income variation. Himachal Pradesh has had highest increase of 0.68 in its relative urban mean incomes. Punjab and Tamil Nadu have seen rise in both rural and urban relative mean incomes. Urban Andhra Pradesh has seen the highest decline in relative mean incomes of 0.61, followed by Jharkhand, Gujarat, West Bengal. Between 2004, 5 and 11, 12, only rural Kerala saw significant double-digit decline in Gini coefficient. Urban areas of Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, West Bengal, Northeast, rural areas of Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal all saw double-digit increase in Gini coefficient. Inequality convergence, there is a negative relationship between Gini coefficient in 4-5 and its subsequent growth in period 4-5 to 11-12. So there is no evidence for goodness curve. Thank you.
Thanks, excellent. I mean, you have covered the whole range of issues in a very short time. We are certainly provoked with number of issues that you have flagged. And I would ask all the participants to wait till the second presentation is made, because there will be some overlap of the conclusions also, but there are some interesting insights which are on a different dimension. So may I request Professor Bezbaruah, you have already seen that overall macro picture about the data has been presented. So you can perhaps, briefly discuss that and then come to your main results. Professor Bezbaruah, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Kundu. And I first of all must place in record my thanks to Dr. Charan Singh and EGROW Foundation for organizing this and having me to share my research on this particular area with this August gathering. And I consider this to be a great honor to be presenting my paper in a session which is chaired by such eminent person like Professor Kundu. And as Professor Tyagi has already presented the all in the picture, and in my paper actually I'm not spending much time on all in the picture, so we'll come directly to the states, and of course some amount of overlapping will not be avoidable. I'll try to avoid as much as possible. First of all, let me put the screen for the audience. This is something always makes me a little nervous, but let's see how it goes. Once again, this didn't work, it seems. Well. Share. Yeah, can you see my?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Yes.
Okay. So first, another thing I have to add. This is a joint
Can you
work.
do the slideshow mode? Can you put it in
Yes.
slideshow?
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
That's fine, right?
Perfect.
So this is joint work with my former PhD student, Mafidul Hassan. In fact, it's a part of his doctoral work also. So let me get straight to the whole thing. As has been said, the most studies in India on inequality. In fact, some of them has been done by very eminent people like Angus Deaton, Tendulkar and Jain, and all were based till recently using. Actually, they looked at inequality in consumption expenditure. The problem is that consumption expenditure, the inequality is not fully reflected in economic inequality, because the rich adds a lot to their savings, which increases their wealth, and also they get a lot of wealth by way of bequests, by inheritance, whereas many a times the poor has to borrow even, to meet their consumption expenditure. So on both sides actually. So I think the inequality is much reduced from both sides, from the top and the bottom. If you're looking at consumption expenditure, only because people have to rely on NSSO data. Now, once this India Human Development Survey data has become available, it has become possible to look into more correct measure of economic inequality, namely the inequality of income. Then we had some studies already coming up, Piketty and Lucas, and there was another by Sam et al. There are more scholars, but all these actually look into the inequality at the all India level. So what we are doing, in what sense our study is different or new, you can say, is because we are looking at the state-wise, the inequality picture. Okay, so we are looking at 17 states. We have left out some states. 17 states, of course, including undivided kind of Bihar, for instance. Bihar includes Jharkhand. Similarly, Andhra Pradesh includes Telangana and so on and so forth. We have left out some states like Delhi and Goa, which are small but highly developed. So this can actually distort the results. Then some studies have shown that if we include the northeastern hill states, that also distorts the picture to some extent. So some of the states have been left out, but these 17 states actually cover more than 95% of Indian population and actually about 93% of area. So I don't think that's a big omission. Then second part of the study actually, where we look at, divide the population by caste, religious, and, the locational, rural, urban categories. All right. So, and we look at the inequality across communities. So this is the background for the thing. Is the slide moving?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, if you look at the inequality, in the states by Gini coefficient, we are not trying very many. Of course, we use Palmer ratio for some studies, but then we are not reporting this here. So if you go by the Gini coefficient, in inequality in Indian states, whether you took at 2004, 5 or 11, 12, it was either high or extreme. So 0.5 and above is considered extreme in Gini coefficient, and 0.35 to 0.5 is considered very high. So we have these states, including, say, these are the states Karnataka, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and all those states which are listed here. These had extreme inequalities in 2004-5, then somewhat less inequality, of course, still high inequality. We had Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Jammu, Kashmir, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Assam, etc., etc. Okay, we had a relatively lower. But by 2011-12, the picture changes. So Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, which Professor Tyagi also has mentioned, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, all these states have been able to manage their inequality from the extreme level to, lower level. And some of the states like Assam, West Bengal, Himachal Pradesh, they have actually had higher inequality. So it has gone up and down. In some states, it has gone up. In some states, it has gone down. Now, this brings me to this particular graphical representation. So can we see some kind of regional pattern? So let me give you the background here. Greener the area, more is the inequality. Yellower the area, less is the inequality. And of course, red parts have not been covered in our study. So what we find actually is that, the middle portion of India from west to east, these are more unequal than the, you can say, northwestern and southern parts. Of course, Karnataka was also very unequal in the beginning. But as we go to the 2011 picture, what we find actually is that this green belt in between has actually, in many places, it has become greener. That means inequality has increased, and it has engulfed, it has been extended to Haryana and West Bengal. And on the southern side, on the other hand, Karnataka has actually, what you call, become less unequal. So there has been some changes, dynamic changes over this period. And you have to remember that this was a period where India also experienced very high rates of growth, remarkable rates of growth between 2004-5 and 11-12. So that is the impact of growth. Now the question is, has there been convergence in inequality? Tyagi has found some evidence of convergence, but our analysis, which may seem a little simplistic, we have done back this up with econometric analysis also. What we have done is that we have here presented the Gini coefficient of 2011-12 against the Gini coefficient of 2004-5. So if you fall on the line, if a particular states fall under that 45-degree line, it's slightly less than 45 degree, but then, if you equalize for units, it will be same. Okay. So if it falls on the line, then of course the inequality has not changed over the years. Now, if you split the diagram in two parts, left-hand side and right-hand side, what you find actually is that the points are, left-hand side will be of course relatively low inequality states. There also you find some points are above the line, some points are below the line. And in the high inequality side also, some points are above the line, some points are below the line. It means that inequality has gone up or gone down in both high and low inequality states of, in between this period, which means that the inequality has not tried to, it has not converged either to high level of inequality or low level of inequality. Now, this is something where we are, what is causing this inequality? Is there any relation between growth and per capita income and, per capita income and inequality? That typical Kuznets kind of a trade-off. Here, this is a static picture where we are plotting, the Gini coefficients in the 2 years against their per capita incomes. Now, this will give you an idea that there is some kind of an inverse relation between what we call the per capita income and inequality. So low per capita income states have very high inequality. It seems, of course, that's not the very uniform kind of thing, but then some kind of indications are there. But there are certain conflicting evidences. For instance, if you look at all India picture, you find that from 2004-5 to 2011-12, the inequality has actually gone up, So, and this is the period where India has also grown very fast. So if income was instrumental in reducing inequality, as per the trade-off of, Kuznets theory, of course, Kuznets hypothesis was discredited to a great extent in 1970s, but then people still talk about that. Now, what do you find actually is that was a period of very high growth, but still India's inequality has actually, overall inequality has increased. So this has given us, a scope to doubt whether actually the change in income or growth in income has been instrumental in sort of, reducing inequality across Indian states. And so to get an answer to this particular question, actually, we have done a case study of 4 states, which we have very carefully selected. And this, of course, I have it, but I'll not like to go into the details of the case study. And the states I have selected, let me point out, there are 4 different interesting states. One is Gujarat, which has high growth, at the same time high inequality, which was also actually remaining increasing further. Then we have Tamil Nadu, which has a high growth but reasonably lower level of inequality, further going down. Then we have Karnataka, the other state, which has also grown fast. At the same time, inequality was very high to begin with, but inequality has fallen. Then the 4th state we included in the case study, what we found actually is that, that is the state of Bihar, where the growth has not been very, very high. At the same time, the inequality has been persistently quite high. Now, we have looked into socioeconomic details and growth patterns, sectoral growth and all those. I have the slides later. If somebody wants, I can already show, but I'd not like to waste your time. So one of the conclusions we have found actually is that, basically, if the growth is driven by, say, manufacturing, there is the high, because manufacturing in India, in particular, the high growing, the manufacturing are very capital intensive. We find that their inequality actually has not come down. Whereas if you look at the service sector driven states, you find that inequality has come down, which shows that the service sector led growth has better, trickle down property than the manufacturing led. This is contrary to popular belief, because people think that manufacturing led growth lead to more employment and all that kind of thing. But that will happen only if you have manufacturing which are, labor intensive manufacturing, like in Bangladesh and all other states. But in India, it's the other way around. And mostly we have found that the extent of inequality has been, basically contributed by the social factors like education, urbanization, and the tertiary enrollment ratio, and those kind of, and plus, of course, the population groups, percentage of population of socioeconomically disadvantaged kind of thing. So from the case study, we have drawn the conclusion that states have a greater income inequality because their social and economic structures have been less conducive to equitable distribution. Those states which have this particular problem, they are less unequal irrespective of their growth. I mean, they are more unequal, and others are actually less equal. So this is where I'd like to wind up my interstate analysis and like to move to intercommunity analysis. Now, this is very interesting, and I must say that India Human Development Survey has done a wonderful job in actually, classifying the entire sample into 7 categories who are actually, mutually exclusive categories. So these categories are Brahmins, forward caste, OBCs, Dalits, Adivasis, Muslims, and we have the last category called Sikhs, Jain, and Christians. And so they are put together. They are not very large in number. And of course, there are some nuances in these definitions which I have given in the subpoints. So basically, Hindus will be 1 to 4, and of course, some parts of the Adivasis and so on and so forth. So this has been, they have taken care of this. Now, sample of each group has been now further broken up into rural and urban. We have broken up the sample to for each of these economic and social class into rural urban categories. So we have, sorry, not economic and social, the religious and caste and classification of population by the sample by religion, caste, and of course rural urban things. So that has given us a background to do the whole thing. Now, how are we studying the inequality? For within a particular group, we have calculated the Gini coefficient of individual income, and that captures the within group inequality. For across group inequality, we have taken the median income of a particular community. I'd like to remind our audience, which are of course very knowledgeable, that income distribution being generally positively skewed, the median is a better indicator, representative rather than per capita income for the income level. So we have used median as of the group as the representation, and what is how much does the median varies? That is our indicator. So the coefficient of variation in the median income has been taken as across group inequality measure. Now let me come to the findings. Now these numbers, of course, okay, a few more things. So more keen observer can actually look into the details. But what you can see here is that, first of all, let us look at the median level of income of the people. Then what you find actually is that the Christian plus, this Christians, Sikhs, and Jains, they are actually the first rank. So income-wise, this category is the best. Then we have, of course, the other categories like the Brahmins. Then you have the. So this has been already mentioned. Okay, and the poorest categories are actually the Muslims, Dalits, and the Adivasis. All right. Then, if you go by inequality, on the other hand, among the Muslims and Dalits, the inequalities are somewhat less. That is for 2004-05. But in all other cases, the inequalities are pretty high. Now, if you go to the 2011-12, you can find that inequality, the income levels, the median income levels are not exactly comparable because they are not adjusted for prices. It's not possible. So they are not exactly. But if you look at the inequality, the pattern more or less remains same. So again, Muslims and Dalits remain relatively more equal than others. Now this diagram is instructive. Here, what we have done actually is that we have expressed the median income of each community as a percentage of the highest median income. That is the income of the Christian, etc. community. This shows that we have 4 communities which have been relatively, they have lower level of income, namely the OBCs, the Dalits, the Adivasis, and the Muslims, of course. And compared to that, the Brahmins and what you call the forward caste are somewhat better off. So there's a big jump between these two sets of communities. Now, one interesting thing is that between 2004-05 and 11-12, the Dalits have been able to improve their position to some extent, relative position to some extent. But then for the Muslims, it has come down a little, and for among the upper, higher, more advantaged people, the Brahmins had some decline in their, relative positions. Now, if we divide it by rural and urban thing, then what we find actually is that again the details are there, but you can look at the coefficient of variation, which is comparable. We find that the coefficient of variation in rural areas has actually increased. So inequality in the rural areas, the across communities, inequalities in rural areas have actually increased. Whereas in urban areas, the coefficient of variation has declined, which shows that, the what we call that inequality across communities in rural areas have actually, in urban areas have actually declined. Which means that as you come to urban areas, that caste class differences actually to some extent gets merged, and actually you do better. Whereas if you still put in the rural areas, those caste, religious, those divisions actually perpetuates. You have this inequality. Then median incomes are reported, but then they are not comparable within the year between rural and urban, because the prices are again different, and also between 2004, 5 and 11, 12. We cannot actually compare that. So if you come to this diagram, now 7 communities have become 14 communities because we have a rural-urban breakup. So we have some rural communities, some urban communities. Now we find again that on the left-hand side, if you look at this, I don't know if it's visible, most of these are urban categories. So they are doing better. And actually, for Christian, etc., the rural, rural subsection of the population have also done quite well in the 2011. But for others, you find the rural things are in the lower right-hand side, which are the lower kind of, median income. Then if you consider all the categories, you find that Adivasis are actually, okay, I think I can come to the next slide. That is, so if you look at the community and space-wise and all that, what you find actually, the Adivasis, Dalits, Muslims, and OBCs are the relatively disadvantaged communities among the social groups. So they are, if you inter-community inequality, if you look at, they are more disadvantaged. The across group inequalities have got somewhat, smothered in urban areas in 2011 to there, over there, 2004-11. But in rural areas, such inequalities got further accentuated. I have already mentioned this. The Adivasis in rural areas remain average income-wise the most disadvantaged socioeconomic group in 2011. Now, as compared to the Adivasis, we have seen that Dalits have done a little better in 2011-12. Maybe the affirmative action has actually worked for Dalits, but not that much for the Adivasis. And also, if you remember, in the earlier stage, Adivasis has one of the highest intra-group inequality, which again maybe the benefits of this what you call the affirmative action may be cornered by a very few among the Adivasis. Most of them have not been able to access that. I mean, these are only conjectures, you can say. Now, of course, relative disadvantage of the Muslims have somewhat increased by 2011-12. So they have not been able to improve much. I mean, improve to compared to themselves, but compared to the other communities, their improvement rates have been much lower. And among the upper end, you can see the Brahmins have lost some of their relative advantages by 2011-12. I have just 2 more slides to share. Other slides I will not like to share. So let me just finish up with these 2. First one is that, given that in any society there has to be some amount of inequality, you cannot find a perfectly equal society. So economists have been talking about fair inequality and unfair inequality. Now, what is the distinction? You see, a person's economic conditions, depend on, to some extent, on factors which are under the control of the person, and to some extent, on the circumstantial factors, the factors which you cannot control. Now, if you are poor because of, if there is a difference between rich and the poor because of the circumstantial factors, that component of inequality will be called unfair inequality, because it's not your fault actually. Now, if it is because of the factors, within your control, suppose you don't do the hard work and all that and remain poor, so you are basically lazy, then of course it's called a fair inequality, because who are more innovative, more hardworking, they will obviously progress. So when we do this caste, religion, and what you call the rural-urban categories, wise divide the people population into those categories, we are taking into account a large part of unfair inequality, which are because the caste, religion, or whether you are in rural areas or urban areas, you don't choose actually. You're born there. So these are large components of inequality, unfair inequality has been shown here. We have taken care of. However, the data set doesn't permit us to take into account two more very important components of unfair inequality, which are the parental wealth and the gender, whether you're male or female. We all know that women are generally poorer than the men. And of course, if you have higher parental wealth, you'll be wealthier. You're born, so you'll have an advantage in the income distribution. So these two factors, of course, we could not take into account. So my concluding thoughts: income inequalities among Indians are unlikely to be, brought down automatically from trickling down effect of the income growth. Building a more equitable society in India will require not only reviving the growth process. Remember, the growth process has started declining even before the COVID started. Actually, from the middle of 2018, it has started declining. But so we need to revive the growth. Without the growth, obviously, it is difficult to have more, redistribution. But growth alone is not going to be enough. So molding the growth process into more participatory one. How one can do it? Of course, there are a lot of discussion. One we are actually under EGROW Foundation also. We have heard about how it is important to formalize the informal economy. That is one part. The other one is that we need to do some kind of reforms so that manufacturing becomes more friendly. Of course, these are some of the solutions which have been talked about. But now, with coming of artificial intelligence, the whole thing is going to be greatly disrupted. So it's again a very uncertain world that we are stepping into. So it's difficult to make any policy recommendations without taking into note those things. But one more thing, the last point I'm trying to make is that the mitigating the disadvantage of the social spatially left behind groups must receive the equal importance as reviving of growth. Why? Because some of the things like caste, religious things, they cannot be changing. And disadvantage because of you're born in a particular caste or a particular religion, it actually goes away very slowly. These are social variables. But then other things, education, tertiary education particularly, those things can be taken care of. So I think these kind of policies need to receive greater importance if we have to build a more equitable society in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bezbaruah.
Welcome. Let me stop.
We would all agree that we have had two very well conceived, empirically rigorous, and very comprehensive presentation raising a large number of issues that have significant policy implications. I'm really congratulating the two scholars and also EGROW Foundation for really bringing these two very important papers for this discussion. Now, before I throw open these issues for the participants to come in, I thought let me misuse the chairpersonship which has been given to me by making one or two observations, not one or two, rather 3 or 4 observations. First thing that strikes me, and I would like to ask this question not only to these two speakers, but to everyone working in the area of inequality, that how come, despite having stalwarts like Dandekar, Minhas, Rath, Tendulkar, and we are discussing again and again that consumption data, why should we restrict to that? Why not income? For 50 years, we have not been able to, when I was a member of National Statistical Commission, we have discussed this issue. Why not collect the data at the household level on income? But this was all turned down, saying, well, there are strong arguments given that people would not report their income, no matter we have 50 categories under which income is being reported in the NCAER study, say they will all be underestimates. There are reasons for the richer people to underestimate, the poorer people to underestimate, because now there are many programs coming up. But nonetheless, I think it is important that we have both consumption expenditure as well as the income data, because as Professor Bezbaruah mentioned, that if you want to find out income in terms of the capabilities, earning possibilities, how much earning is coming, income data is required. But if you want to focus on well-being, how the person has survived during the year, than what the person has consumed, irrespective of whether it is a loan or whatever it is. If you are focusing on really poverty issues, malnutrition issues, then perhaps consumption expenditure is better. But nonetheless, also the question is, how come people had to wait for 15 years before this income expenditure data has been subjected to a rigorous analysis? This is a question certainly we can think about. But let me raise a couple of other issues. One is the sample size. 41,000 households, right? And this is revisited. 93% of the households are revisited. That old households have been visited again in 2011-12.
Yes.
Sample size is much less than NSS.
Yes.
What is the level of confidence that we can place on the city level inequality? Mumbai, for example, being talked about. What is the sample size? Because the moment you have smaller number of households, the standard error will go up. But this again, you can say that, well, given the data, that's all we could do. But nonetheless, we must realize that the city level data, even for large number of states, National Sample Survey data gives very high standard error. Up to 2003-04, we did not publish poverty data for northeastern states individually. We basically used Assam's data and made it as a proxy. That is the second issue, that once you go to the disaggregation, what would be the level of confidence depending on the small size, particularly at the city level? The third question that strikes me, Professor Tyagi, Professor Bezbaruah, you know that 90% plus households are old households being taken out. The new households, which are there in 11-12, have not been covered, excepting 1,000 that too are a replacement. And when you're replacing, then you're taking a household in the locality. General, of course, is a matter of empirical investigation, but general understanding is that the new households which are being formed because the young fellow coming up and taking up a job, leaving the slum areas, going to the other places, they are likely to have a higher level of income. That's why you're not taking the new households which have come up between 2004-05 and 2011-12. You are revisiting those households. So the new households that have been formed, whether their income level, if that would have been taken in, perhaps inequalities would have been sharper. That is a point to be considered, empirically investigated. The final point about the database, I don't know whether Surjit has joined. Dr. Charan Singh, you did mention he has not joined, but he makes an interesting observation when he talks about consumption expenditure data. He says the role of the public agencies, the government agencies, in augmenting the consumption expenditure is important. For example, PDS, giving during pandemic period, gave massive amount of subsidies and free food grains. That should be added. Even the gas cylinders, but nonetheless, there is a withdrawal of state in health and other areas. That there has to be an adjustment. As far as this income data of NCAER is concerned, I looked at the different earnings. They have not taken fellowships, for example. They have not taken any land if you sell and get a money, or insurance claims, which is perfect. They are not part of income, but they certainly go into your consumption expenditure and well-being. But certainly some money being given for toilet construction, housing construction, that have also not been taken as an income. Whereas Surjit makes a case, and I would agree there, that if the role of the public agencies become different, is more involved in providing basic services, which really reduces your personal expenditure on that because you are getting it free. That adjustment has not been made in this data. We can think about it because this is a challenging, area which has come up. We have to address some of these methodological issues. Now, I just want to make one or two other observations. As far as Professor Tyagi is concerned, I think he has, in a way, suggested that this diversion into the welfare-based general inequality measures and Atkinson's measures are really not that needed in this paper, Basically because, Professor Tyagi, you're concerned that Gini coefficient is inadequate basically because you have mentioned it, that it does not distinguish between the transfer at the higher level with the transfer at the lower level. If there is a transfer at the among the poorest 2 persons and a transfer at the richest 2%, it makes no distinction. Whereas our thinking, general welfare consideration, that the lower transfer should be given higher weightages. That can be addressed by Thiel's inequality measure, which is decomposable. I'm not saying this for a academic work. Fine, we can have 3-4 different measures of general inequality measure and Atkinson's measure. What is the difference between 0.5 to 0.1 if you change the alpha? These are theoretical issues which you could have avoided. But your graphs showing where the inequality has gone down is coming out from the Lorenz curve very well. That's why I thought, well, you have yourself said that in the empirical paper, this perhaps doesn't have much relevance. And I was looking at the tables. Once you find if the Gini coefficient has gone up over time, all the other measures either have gone up or remained the same. There's not much of a change also coming up. So I thought that was something that you could have avoided. And I think the main conclusion that comes out from the both, and I think Professor Bezbaruah emphasizes it, that inequality in the states are not really linked with the rate of growth. This trickle-down effect will not happen because your analysis, Professor Tyagi, also shows that the inverted U-shaped curve is not holding. You fitted, multinomial, it doesn't come out to be significant. If you fit a straight linear model, you do find, yes, there is a negative relationship between the inequality goes down with higher slightly, but that also is because of Bihar, which is at the lowest low income and high inequality, and at the other end you have Gujarat and Maharashtra. You take these out, you don't find much of a relationship. So I think that is a very striking finding that comes to from both the analysis, that you can't expect that the rate of growth will automatically take you across that hump of the U-shaped curve and inequality will start declining. I think that is a very, very important point. You're saying structural social factors are important if you really want to reduce the level of inequality. I thought these are some of the basic questions that come to my mind, but I must appreciate the concern with which the data has been analyzed, specifically focusing on the socially marginalized groups. I wanted to know whether when you talk about Hindus, whether you include scheduled caste and scheduled tribe also in the Hindus category, because that would really change the result significantly. That is one thing, but nonetheless, more recent data are available from a periodic labor force survey. We have analyzed that across the social groups, and many of your conclusions are exactly the same, which is emerging from the data for 2019-2021. And I understand that the University of Maryland and NCAER would be doing the third round of the household level income survey data. And I hope that data is also analyzed, and some of these data related questions, if they're addressed and then compared, I think this will be a very, very rich exercise, because we all realize that the income data and the consumption expenditure data tell us slightly different stories, and both these studies are extremely important. I think I have taken a lot more time than I thought. May I open, Dr. Charan Singh, this forum for
Sure. I
discussion?
think we should.
Anyone, please?
Yeah, very rich discussion. Please open it.
If you have questions already with you, you can read them out, or maybe.
I don't see many questions in the chat box because I think it's a very technical session. But then as a student of economics and not of poverty and income inequalities, I had one or two queries. Professor Baruah, I was looking at and I was wondering if the sectoral distribution of national income, and there's a shift from agriculture to industry or services, does have any impact on income inequalities in the state. And I was having in mind two contrasting examples. One was Punjab and Haryana, which continued Punjab and Haryana Punjab continued to be an agri state. Haryana, on the other hand, was industrializing very fast. That was one in my mind. The other was, does it matter that in case there is a coastal important port in the state that has an implication on the income inequalities? Because Bombay plays that role very significant.
Right.
The last question, of course, I had was on the when your analysis is so deep, very excited. But when you categorized into Christians, Sikhs, and that means if you had decomposed, or if you have decomposed and not reported because of space constraint, do you find any difference between these? Because the Sikhs in Punjab are generally rural based, and Sikhs outside Punjab are generally urban based.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Would you, any one of the speakers would like to take up any of
Can
the
I
questions,
start
or should we
responding?
have a round of questions so that you can relate them? Which one would you prefer?
So I think
So
our
Tyagi, would you
hands are
like to
quite
have
full,
other
actually.
questions added to this before you are asked, or would you like to give a quick
I can
response?
give a quick response.
Okay,
I think, Professor Kundu, your concerns about data are all well founded.
right.
Mumbai probably does not have a very huge sample, but as you know, we make predictions about elections based on very little sample, and usually they are not too far off. So till there is better data available, this is the best we have.
Thank you.
Is
I
all
got
my-
the answer. Yes, I got the answer. You know, best is the enemy of good. So go ahead.
And
But Professor,
yeah,
Charan Singh asked a question with the shift of workforce and also income share from agriculture to industry. Would it have any effect? Because two of the speakers today have said that the economic factors, the growth, etc., doesn't have any impact on the inequality. Whether you fit a multinomial function or you run a regression on the inequality and growth, or inequality in the level of income, or change in inequality and change in level of income, you don't find much significant relationship.
so let me
So, but the question is sectoral shift. Does that make any impact on the inequality? Because you can always pick up one state, saying, look, this state shifted from agriculture to industry and the inequality has gone up. But there will be another case which will give the opposite. So, you can't argue. But nonetheless, urban inequality is always higher than rural inequality. So that is a factor with industrialization. If urbanization goes up, generally one would expect higher inequality with this sectoral shift. But nonetheless, sorry, Professor Tyagi, you wanted to respond to this question?
I wanted to respond to your question about whether the growth by itself will do any good to reducing inequality. I think even if you look at Western countries, which some of the Western countries which have low inequality, they have not relied primarily on income growth. They are welfare states. And USA, which is an outlier, where income inequality is actually quite high by Western rich country standards. Even though it is a welfare state, it's not so much of a welfare state like the other welfare states. Let's put it this way.
Okay. Professor Bezbaruah, is there
Yes.
any quick comment?
Yeah, can I? I mean, there are quite a few questions piled up, but I'd like to comment as quickly as possible. Like you said,
Yeah, can I ask a question, please?
Just give 1 more minute, huh? Yes.
first of all,
responding,
the
Professor.
sample size 41K is not very large. I think it's large enough for India as a whole, but you have to look at the quantity of data they were collecting per unit, so that is very massive. So if you actually, and I don't have to really say it, that if you increase the sample size further, I think non-sampling errors can be quite large. And all household, of course, they have visited, but some of the households have, in fact, in the meantime, further bifurcated and became separate families. So they have replacements or going to those families. Now, regarding the Professor Valla's point, what you said, actually by that time, those income transfers were not very important. And National Food Security Act has come into being, but at the same time, those may not have been very, very large. And at the same time, most of the transfers has been taken care of. So they say the income they have given is a disposable income kind of a thing. So alternative measures, of course, now actually the ratio-based measures are more popular after PKT and all that. So Palmer ratio and all that. So this is something, because these are much easier to understand. Whereas if you look at entropy index size and all that, these are slightly difficult for the layman to understand. Professor Charan Singh's very, very interesting questions. I might have missed one or two. Punjab and Haryana. If you look at sectoral composition, that's very interesting. What we have found from our case studies is that, you know, if you have shifted from agriculture to manufacturing, you know, it is not helping your inequality. In fact, it is aggravating in your inequality. There's a big, you know, literature on that also. Why it's so in India, not in China for the matter. But if you are diversifying to services, even very high profile services like, you know, IT and all that, what we find actually is that somehow the trickle down is better than in case of manufacturing. So I think this has a very important thing. I have mentioned this point. Some of them maybe you missed it. Now, decomposition of Sikhs, Christians, and Jains, we did not attempt. You know, because otherwise that the sample size will be very small, and actually the inference you can draw maybe not very meaningful. Maybe this is something we can do, as you have suggested. We'd like to do it, and some of the states we have left out, we can do it. But the sample sizes are not going to be very, very large, and in that case, as Professor Kundu has mentioned, standard errors may be very, very large, and your results may lose some kind of credibility.
But you can focus on certain states where they have large populations.
Like, I suppose so. That's a good suggestion. We'd like to look at
Sikhs in Punjab and Christians in Kerala, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Christians in northeastern states also we can look at, which we have left out completely from this.
Professor Bezbaruah, I looked at the different sources of income in the data of NCAER. They do not include any government transfer, which you are right, that was not massive, but certainly they were there, and also any scholarship amount, that is also an income. And consumption expenditure data has adjusted that to that, you know, changing role of the public sector. So there is no reason why in income you cannot consider this. Do not consider the insurance payment or that, but you look at the items, 50 items or 48 items are there.
They include, sir. They include.
Pardon me?
They include.
No. In fact, they have mentioned specifically that they do not include any insurance money or any money that you have got for a housing or constructing toilets. So that is something.
But that's a lump sum payment.
That's a lump sum payment, and that will be more towards wealth rather than income.
There are some ways of, you know, distributing that amount over a period of time, and you can account something. That's what has been done in consumption expenditure. I don't know why this cannot just consider this.
Anyway, thanks for bringing up this.
Other point is about the panel data. Panel data has certain advantages because you can see the changes taking place in the same household. But if you took a random sample of the households in 2011-12, it will certainly include new households which are likely to have a higher income. And that's why the income inequality will be higher, because you're restricting 92%, 93% to the old households. The old households, to my mind, you know, with the development dynamics coming in, would have a lower per capita income than the newer households which are being formed. Again, this is an empirical question.
No, that's natural.
One question which a lady was asking. Sorry, you wanted to respond?
No, I said, you know, that problem can be taken care of by taking a
absolutely
dummy actually. You know.
Right.
Anyway, but
anyway,
the suggestion that you have made.
Oh, sorry, I stopped, lady. Please announce your name.
And
get on the screen.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Indira Hirve.
Indira,
yeah.
What about your video?
My video is not working. Maybe let me try.
Okay, it's okay if it's
not working. Yeah, it's not working. But
I think
okay, it doesn't matter.
You are on mute, Indira.
Yeah, if we miss both the video and audio, it will be a problem.
Indira, your audio.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, because the video doesn't start, it seems. Anyway, what I would like to ask is the critical factor in inequality is opportunities, equality of opportunities.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, you know, the race, caste, gender, parental wealth, all these things do not provide equality to opportunities. And that's why we have to create opportunities for people who are at the bottom. And here we would say that equality to access to opportunities, access to credit, access to technology, some of these things are very important in addressing inequality, because radical changes in wealth, etc., may take time, but if you strengthen the bottom people through this, for example, in Gujarat, there is a clear division as far as educational opportunities are concerned. People at the bottom cannot have better education. Unless you have money, you cannot have better education. Same is with health. Now, if you have no equal opportunities, you cannot expect equal participation and therefore equality in the economy.
Yeah, madam, your point is very well taken. We must focus on equality of opportunity, including education and including how education tests are interpreted. If you look at Western countries, some of them are much ahead on this count. Their IQ tests are no longer required. Even GRE is laid down these days because it is, even though it is considered an so education opportunities, yes, are important. And if you are looking at equality of opportunity, that's one important thing, I think.
Right.
And
Thank you. Any other question?
No, sir, if I may add to this point, it's
Yes,
very
please,
important.
please go
Actually,
ahead.
I was trying to talk about equalization of opportunities, and very radical thing Professor Piketty has come up with, that he said that there should be more circulation of capital. That is something which is a very interesting idea. I don't know how far this is implementable, but at the same time, at least in the realm of thinking, things have done. Apart from, of course, there is no second opinion regarding that equality of educational opportunities has to be there. But then there is also question of circulation of capital he's talking about. That's I find that very interesting and inviting.
Okay, thank you. Can
we
we have?
other inequalities are network. What is education for? I mean, there are lots of very well educated people who don't earn a lot of money. So if you're just looking at earning capacity, education overall in a society is a good indicator, but within a society it may not be.
Any other question?
Can I ask?
Yes, please.
I am Matthew Kurian from Kerala. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible,
absolutely.
but you can be
Okay.
videoed also. Why? No?
In Kerala, we are still pursuing decentralized planning, as all of you know. And we have such institutions like Kudumbashree and also PDS. So I think, so my question is, from a policy point of view, can these be of any lesson for the rest of states in containing inequality?
I think it's an important question. I think to some extent this was answered, that if in the states where there is a significant role of this government in providing the basic amenities, to that extent you are adding to the consumption expenditure or the income. So inequality will be reduced. You are absolutely right. So in the calculation of inequality, you should consider the governmental transfers, both in consumption expenditure as well as income. That's the point that you're making. And
Yes, thank you.
Tyagi and Dr. Bezbaruah?
I think it's the role of the government as a facilitator. Like, look at the Panchayati Raj, for instance, in Kerala. That has been much ahead before the 73rd Constitution Amendment came, and that actually led to real rural empowerment and all that. And then of course education and all that, which probably not only the government facilitated, but then other agencies like Christian missionaries and all. So a lot of things do happen. Social entrepreneurs and government and all can actually contribute to building a more equal kind of a society. I think Kerala's example we always take. This is the true Kerala story we like to see.
Now, what about Karnataka? For example, the new government, which is taking over, has promised unemployment relief 1,000 rupees and for graduates 1,500. Wouldn't you add that in the income when this is operationalized? Similarly, farmers getting money, that should be part of the income.
It should be, and it will be, I think, if they actually get it.
Sorry?
It will be if they get it.
But for the farmers, there is some money which is being given. If they don't get it, that's a different matter. But when you're asking a question that are you getting, we are not asking the government whether you're giving. We're asking a household whether you're getting any money, and that should be included, right?
It is included.
It should be because as I said that it is not in the items. They have not mentioned that this thing should be included. But as I said, in consumption expenditure, they have included that in Balla's work and also some others. Any other question? It's a technical paper, but I'm sure there will be.
Sir, what about the inequality report published in 2021, sir? Is there any correlation between your study?
Oxfam. Which one are you talking about? Inequality report?
Sir, income inequality report was published in 2021. Is there any correlation between their study and about the report, inequality reports submitted in 2021, sir? Individual inequalities.
Which report? Is it a World Bank, shared prosperity and inequality report, or some other report you're talking about? And that will not have a correlation because this study both these studies refer to 2011-12, even before COVID, even before other things, GST and other things have come into Indian economy. So this was a period where 2004, 5, and 11, 12. This is an interesting period because the growth was pretty high, and there were things like in a way redistribution was coming, and NREGA was there. Then National Food Security Act was getting to be implemented, and so on and so forth. So I think 21 report will not be comparable because a lot of things have happened since then. Particularly the COVID has disrupted the whole thing. And there was one report from I think this Azim Premji University, which shows that the post-COVID, the inequality in the societies have increased a little bit. I mean, quite a bit actually, not a little bit, because unemployment may not have increased that much, but then inequality has increased because a lot of people in the informal sector, particularly, they have settled for lower paying jobs rather than higher paying jobs. I think this is a general information I have. I can't really give more.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Dr. Bezbaruah, one of your colleague in Northeast, Dr. Batula, he was interested in joining. I saw his name. Any question, Dr. Batula, if you are still there? Oh, I think he might have left. Any other question? I just wanted to mention one thing in continuation of the point that Professor Indira Hirve was raising. You see, you talked about, Professor Bezbaruah, about fair inequality and unfair inequality.
Yes.
There is a mathematical model, which is Okaka Blinder, and they are using it to find out discrimination, which is different from inequality. Suppose the inequality is 100, it will be decomposed into two parts. Part of that inequality, which is attributed to the differences in the endowments, education level, experience, and whatever are the endowment factors. In the labor market, that difference attributed to the endowments will be considered to be fair. And the difference which cannot be attributed to endowment, which is attributed to your, for example, caste, your religion, your gender, that is the unfair inequality. Now, why I'm just mentioning, do you think that this model which has been used, India Discrimination Report, does apply, bifurcates inequality into two parts? But there, the Professor Indira Hirve's point is something which is fair inequality in labor market is unfair inequality in the endowment market, because the person didn't have the access to education, didn't have access to credit, didn't have access to proper health facilities. And that's why what you call to be fair inequality in the labor market is unfair inequality in the endowment market. So this question will still be there. Would you like
Absolutely.
to react to this?
No, actually, I think these are still gray areas, and these are in the realm of ideas. People have started to talk about it. Not really very recently, but then people have been talking about. And actually, as I think Atkinson or one another author said, that what we call fair and unfair may become actually gradually become unfair again, because suppose I have earned my wealth with my hard work and all that, but my next generation will have that advantage, you know. So these things are not very clear cut, and but still, I think these are some of the issues we really need to take into account.
You know, fair and unfair inequality in the credit market, for example, has been analyzed by Madheshwaran. Dr. Thorat has also analyzed the fair, unfair inequality in the labor market and also educational access to education. So I think you are right that they are very recent origin, and a lot more work needs to be done to analyze the trends of inequality and to what extent, given the existing situation, we can perhaps not justify, but perhaps postpone our concern for some time.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Thank you for that suggestion. Thank you for that suggestion. It is possible to do Oaxaca kind of decomposition using the data that IHDS has. It is possible to do that kind of Oaxaca kind of decomposition.
Right.
It's possible to do it with IHDS data.
Good. I think these are the
I
challenging
haven't seen
areas which
any-
have emerged out of your presentations. Yes.
I haven't seen anyone doing it, but it is possible to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Professor Charan Singh?
I
Now-
think I must thank you.
Anything
We've
else?
gone beyond our time,
Okay.
but it was a very intense discussion. I want to thank you as the chairman of the session, and you brought all your richness of experience here, and we want to thank you for that. I also want to thank both the panelists. A very rigorous work, very impressed, and you will be surprised. You know, me and Professor Kundu, both of us were thinking it's a very technical discussion. Would anybody be joining on as a participant? We crossed 82 today.
Oh my God.
So, you know, this topic really is of great interest. One thing, professors, I must mention to you, I come from North India, have some of my roots in Punjab also. There's been a heavy conversion in Punjab from Sikhs to Christianity. And the reason being given is the income inequalities between the Sikhs, and especially in the rural areas. That is why I was asking that question, which can have a policy implication, that what are the factors that lead to inequality, and then what are the implications of rising inequality. Hopefully, there will be some good research which can throw light on Punjab, income inequalities amongst the Sikhs, and the compulsion to convert that is happening. So I must thank you all. Result of a good seminar triggers many more thoughts. And as I have noticed, you would have noticed, there's been a series of thoughts which have been triggered in the minds of three of you, the chairman and the two speakers, and the minds of the participants. So that's the richness of a good seminar, and I think that's been shown today so well. We'll have the recording available tomorrow by noon on our website. Happy to send you also all. And next Friday, we have a presentation on a very interesting topic. And that is, can gross fiscal deficit be inflationary? So we are not talking of monetized deficit. We are talking of a gross fiscal deficit. Now, this research is coming out of the IMF's fiscal department. And this is already there partly in their fiscal monitor, which has been published in April. So I did invite all of you. This, I think, is a path-breaking research, and I also think is taking the frontier of economic research forward. All of us have always thought money is the main cause of inflation. Milton Friedman's famous statement, wherever there is inflation, it is money. But up now, there's a study being done at the IMF, which is trying to see in case gross fiscal deficit can also be inflationary. So it is a research which is pioneering and on the frontier, and the presentation will be here next week. Because it's being made in Washington, we will start little late. We will start around 7 and close by 8:30 because the speaker is joining us from across. So I would invite all of you to please plan your next Friday so that you can be with us. So have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being with us today. Once again, let me thank Professor Kundu and Professor Bezbaruah and Professor Tyagi to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.